Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. This is Phil Stevens. You're on Iron Radio again. I am a strength coach, powerlifter, Highland Games athlete, currently away meeting with a high school and then giving a seminar today.
Nice. This is Dr. Mike Nelson, Associate Professor of the Kerrigan Institute, creator of the Flex Diet Cert and the Physiologic Flexibility Cert, which opens again March 18th. And I am back from Mexico in Minnesota.
This is Coach Durrell with the Strength Guild in KC. I am a weightlifting and strength and conditioning coach and gym owner in the Kansas City area.
This is Lonnie Lowry. I'm a university professor for about 25 years and a food industry and academic consultant and former competitive bodybuilder. We're coordinating this big call behind the scenes, everybody. This has just been a fustercluck trying to get everybody on Skype, which is sort of aging app as it is. What we're going to do in the first half, at least, is talk about research roundup. What I'm going to do is something a little different. I'm going to read a research headline, and we're going to get most of these today from Science Daily, and then just get a response in order from each of the guys, just like without tons of details. What's your first thought? And I can almost predict what some of you guys are going to say about these, and you'll know what I mean when I say it, when I read the title and stuff. But so half a dozen or so of these, and then after the break, we'll just do some general news about what's going on. There's, the Arnold going on, and Phil's travels and adventures with trying to enlighten the strength coaching world and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so again, Science Daily, if you want to go look at this for a deep dive, anybody, the diet and weight control news section, top headlines. Here's one. Could ultra-processed foods be the new silent killer? This is from February of this year. Hundreds of novel ingredients never encountered by human physiology are now found in nearly 60% of the average adult's diet and nearly 70% of children's diets in the U.S. This is an emerging health hazard, potentially, etc. So they're getting at everything from the excess sodium to potassium ratio, the weird use of like emulsifiers, like carboxymethylcellulose and stuff that can mess with the mucus in your gut and all that kind of stuff. Additives and who knows what, things that really aren't part of food you eat from a farm. So that's a good one to pose to Phil, since he does eat plenty from a farm. What's your thoughts on this? Ultra-processed foods could be the new silent killer.
There's more and more coming out about that. Just from, I don't know, I've seen it lately about like people go overseas and they instantly lose a bunch of weight. And it's just comparing our food to other places' foods. I mean, it can be good, and we've talked about this for years. Like when people go on a diet, like I always tell people, eat like an adult. It's, why don't you just look for things where, like, I want my steak to have one ingredient,
Yeah, beef.
You look on the back, and if there's 47 things you can't pronounce, it's probably not good for you. And I'm not saying that shit tastes good, so you got to have some of it, but it can't be a way to live. If you're basing your dietary intake on that, you're probably missing the boat somewhere.
Right. Ages ago, I wrote an article called Frankenfoods, and sometimes these are supposed to be healthy foods, but they're kind of Frankensteinian, like low-fat ice cream. Like these ice creams have the carboxymethylcellulose, these weird emulsifiers and stuff. And I mean, there are a lot of foods, and the official message is, no, they're safe. But I think these guys are saying, yeah, but over time, do they screw with you? At a seminar once it came up, hey, Lonnie, is it something we're missing in the food supply or something we're being exposed to? And I'm like, well, that's an impossible question. I think, if anything, it might be something we're exposed to now, but we're also missing things, right? Like omega-3s and blah, blah, blah. So, Mike, how about you? Ultra-processed foods, could they be the new silent killer?
I mean, I agree with Phil. I'm not going to be like, oh, ultra-processed foods are amazing. But my gut reaction is I also wonder, because now we have a name to put on it, that we can then just throw all context and discussions of context out the window, and we just have a new villain to go after, which ironically I would be more in for if I thought it would actually change anything. I think it's another thing to be afraid of.
Yeah, it's industry driven, right? Profits. I mean, if this stuff is,
Right.
if the feds say it's safe, I just listened to an IFT, Institute of Food Technologists seminar yesterday about artificial sweeteners and all the politics involved. And there's like one Italian group suggesting one of them is unsafe. And, this other guy's like, no, it's safe, safe, safe. So food processing is necessary. I want everybody to understand this, right? You have to process food. Foods aren't just grown. They're made these days. And like Mike said, nothing we're going to say is going to change this from a health perspective because there's lots of other ethical things at work. But what about you, Jarrell? Ultra processed foods, what's your take?
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, but good luck with where we're at now, like reversing that motion.
Yeah.
Anything without enough, anything without enough study behind it being quote unquote safe. It's easy to be safe when you don't have to apply to any standards, really.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel like it's an evolving issue too. Like I used sucralose for years. It looked safe. The molecule looks a lot like sucrose, like table sugar. It's got some chlorine atoms. I know that's weird. But as it turns out, at least my understanding most recently, it's not that sucralose is toxic. It's that one of the things that gets metabolized into can damage DNA. Well, I have a family history of intestinal polyps. So I don't want damaged DNA. Anything encouraging that. But it was one of the intermediates. It wasn't the chemical itself. It was something that comes out in the wash later kind of deal. Again, yeah. What got me about this was 60% of the average adult's diet has these novel ingredients. That's a lot. Yeah.
There's your problem.
Yeah. How about just eggs, like steak? Yeah, right, exactly. Spinach. Yeah.
Average person doesn't cook anymore. I mean,
no.
It's just, yeah. I mean,
yeah. Or if they do cook, quote unquote, cook, they're nuking,
something that's already pre-made. Yeah.
Yeah. Some TV dinner thing in the microwave. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next one. I must find this one comical, but it's not that it's false. Protein-rich breakfast boosts satiety and concentration. A new study has explored the link between diet and cognitive function, and the results reveal that a protein-rich breakfast can increase satiety and improve concentration. This is an important message for a society grappling with obesity. What do you think, Phil? Protein-rich breakfast boosting satiety and concentration.
I'd like to welcome those scientists that did that study to 1973.
Exactly. Oh my God. Exactly. I wouldn't have said it that funny though. That's yeah. Cause I looked at my wife. I'm like, no shit. That's cruel. I know science is stepwise, but yeah, this is why I thought I would get your guys' responses. What about you, Mike? Protein-rich breakfast boosts satiety and concentration.
Yep, I agree.
Nothing to
shattering news.
Yeah. Okay. And Jarrell, what do you think?
Yeah, same. Our first nutrition step is a 50-gram protein breakfast for most people.
Yeah.
Honestly,
yeah, good.
Or 50 grams before 10 or something.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine at my age with my glucose tolerance not as good as it used to be and stuff. It's like starting the day with a big bowl of cereal. Are you kidding? I would just fall asleep.
That's what I find ironic about some clients. They're like, breakfast makes me sleepy. I'm like, well, you ate 2 bagels and an orange juice. It's like an oral glucose tolerance test. There's no protein in it. How about we add some protein to it?
Yep. Yeah. I remember working with an outpatient client in dietetics. This poor kid, like zero physical activity, and he was on the free breakfast program at his school, and he would start his day with a large soft pretzel and Cheese Whiz on it.
Oh,
and I'm
Jesus.
like, oh my God.
Oh.
And they put the kid on metformin, and he melted like 1 to 2 pounds of fat every week consistently. And I'm thinking, well, that's good for his health, but get on a bicycle, kid. What do you have available at school? Like who is offering this, right?
Yeah.
Like who's allowing a soft pretzel with Cheese Whiz on it? I don't even know what to call that stuff. Cheese spray goo product. Yeah, I don't know. But
talk about ultra processed. That's
I know.
Ultra processed.
Right. Right. Now, in defense of this protein-rich breakfast, it's good to add up. Like sometimes we dogpile a little bit in science. Like let's get lots of evidence piled up on something. But I knew you guys were going to be like, same thing. Like, yeah, we got that. That's nailed down. I mean, we've done that over the years. Like, oh, new study says high dose testosterone, might build muscle. Oh, well, thanks for that. But yeah, and I'm not going to call out the researchers or anything else. Maybe we'll keep this just a light touch because, yeah, I get it why they're doing it. We need evidence, and each hypothesis is such a reductionist little thing. They're answering a very minute thing, and then of course the journalists try to get a hold of it and make it interesting. And I always remember about that one NIH. He was like a keystone speaker. I think it actually might have been all the way back when you were at ISSN, Phil. And we're listening to this guy, and he's like, if I try to explain nutrition science to the average consumer, it's so underwhelming they won't listen. And it's because it's reductionist. And so there's my disclaimer. But yeah, it's hard to make that exciting. Study urges people to think twice before going on a diet. So this is from January 29th of this year, the reporting. A new qualitative study highlights the negative interpersonal and psychological consequences associated with yo-yo dieting, also known as weight cycling. The work underscores how toxic yo-yo dieting can be and how it affects both the person and the people around them. All right, Phil, what do you think? Study urging people to think twice about hard dieting.
Well, I'd tell them to think twice about quitting. Don't fucking yo-yo.
That's part of the yo-yo.
I can see it's probably just the title that's fucking it up. I would urge people not to go on like a crash diet, and instead, why don't you find something you can live with long term? But that's the same issue in fitness and everything else. People love picking these extremes that they'll never sustain, and they do it hardcore for a short amount of time, and it works, and then they fucking quit, and they expect that what they just did will just stay, and it doesn't. So, maybe sit down and actually think for a little bit and pick an intelligent solution to your issue instead of just jumping on the first extreme thing.
I've heard different things about yo-yo dieting over the year. Some researchers will say you're actually better off in the end, believe it or not. Others will say, no, the fat you regain, there's more of it. It's different. It could be more inflammatory. You do permanent kind of, endocrine damage. But yeah, so you hear different things about this over the years. My first thought about this was like the bodybuilding harsh diets, progressive diets that they do take a toll on a person. They take a toll on the people around them, like the social kind of thing. You hear about people getting divorced. I mean, literally after preparing for some big national event, and they couldn't stand the arguing, especially they're both dieting. That's just not a good, hangry kind of scenario. But I think this is more like the psychological damage that it does to the individual, probably. Mike, what do you think about this? About study urges people to think twice before going on a diet.
Yeah, my first thought was, what diet? Like Phil said, if it's the crash diet flavor of the month, whatever the hell that is, there's always a new one. Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. But, if you hire an expert or do something halfway intelligent, it's not easy, but it can be done, and that's, again, I get worried people see headlines like that and they're like, yep, never need to diet. I'm good. It's like, no, that's not true either.
No, actually, that's the wrong takeaway.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it does look like that. And this is, again, you guys all know what I think about, like when science journalists get a hold of a study, urges people to think twice before going on a diet. It's a good point about what kind of diet. Like, is it one that fits you? Is it one that's stepwise or moderate enough to stick? It's not the do 800 calories every day or the whatever the hell, the lemon juice and maple syrup cayenne pepper diet thing. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the grapefruit diet, in fact.
Grapefruit diet.
Grapefruit and nothing else, man. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't eat much protein and mess up all your meds if you're on any too by eating shit tons of grapefruit.
Right. Exactly. That's got other baggage,
Yep.
All right, Coach Barber, what do you think? Study urges people to think twice before going on a diet.
Yeah, I mean, that headline's like really same sidesy, which is I mean, probably all of our frustration with. It's like, yeah, that grapefruit diet and the diet that we espouse they're not two things on the same stream. But the second you say diets, it puts us all on the same line. It's like, yeah, see, Coach Lowry and, or Dr. Mike, Dr. Lowry, you guys, the nutrition that you would espouse, it's a diet. It goes on the same line as the grapefruit diet. And it's like that already kind of ruins the conversation because it's like the grapefruit diet or any of the silly diets are not actually, a true nutrition strategy. It's just like we'll call it like a hope, kind of like a hope strategy or organized anorexia, I guess would be kind of like the better term. But it's like anytime you have to have a conversation with someone and then you say diet, it's like what we do and then versus what that program is not the same. But by having to argue against it all the time, you automatically are putting yourself in the same bucket as, those silly diets. And I feel like we're about due for a new one.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah.
And I mean, to go further to this, I think the biggest the problem is, like, most people need to have a lifestyle change. Like, when I was doing what I was doing for competing, I knew that wasn't sustainable for life. Like, when I was trying to eat the 290 and stuff like that. But now, like, the biggest thing I get from people is the way I'm eating now, which is mainly just meats and vegetables and easy shit, just good food. Like, well, how long are you doing this? I'm like, for life?
Right.
There's no end? No, this is like it. This is what I'm going to do for essentially ever. And everybody wants an end to it. And that's not what you need. The average person doesn't need an end to anything. There's like no start date, no end date. You need to find something you can stick to for life.
Right. Yeah. Contest date dieting, like I used to do, is not the same thing as dieting for the long haul, right? And Jarrell has a good point. Diet, that's such a loaded word. People think that means restriction. And to me and Mike, it just means intake. That your diet is just the foods that you put in your pie hole. It doesn't mean restriction or any weird negative baggage, but the average person does associate the word diet, puts it in this category totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a small issue because I have the Flex Diet certification, and it took me 6 months for me to finally use the word diet because I hated the misinterpretation of it so much. But like you said, Lonnie, I ended up using it because that's the word everyone else uses. Even if I don't think of it that way, you still have to kind of speak to other people in a language they're using, just hopefully give them some better shit to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's education, right? I mean, you can look at the diet of someone from Colombia versus from some European country. Mediterranean diet, right, for example. That's just what composes that diet. Lots of olive oil and fruits and vegetables and seafood and blah, blah, blah. It's not low-cal. It's not cutting out whole sections of my plate or the food pyramid or whatever. I don't know. So, okay, a couple more here. Furry fruit improves mental health. It says, kiwi fruit has proven itself a powerful mood booster, and new research has shown just how that affects. Now, let me give you a little bit of backstory. They're comparing kiwi versus vitamin C. They're saying vitamin C has been linked to mood. Kiwi is a source of vitamin C, and it might actually have some synergy beyond a vitamin C tablet. What's your gut response to this? I know this isn't exercise per se, but furry fruit improves mental health. What do you think, Phil?
If eating fruit's good for you. People should do more of it, I guess. I could see. I mean, there's plenty of science out there that there's lots of vitamins and minerals and nutrients in fruits and vegetables.
Right.
We should probably eat more of them. Who was it that said, like, everybody should eat like a vegan and then put a bunch of meat with it? I mean, it's true.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to really make comments on this. I dug into that just a little. I peeked about, hey, which phytochemical are we talking about? Which bioactive substance, in addition to the vitamin C, could be working with it? Like we think about chlorogenic acids and all the antioxidants in coffee, maybe working with the caffeine. So what is it? And I didn't see any of that. It was just like whole fruit may be better than a vitamin C pill. Although vitamin C pills might be helpful for like people that are low C could have more depressive symptoms and all that kind of stuff, but what's your take on this, Mike? Furry fruit improves mental health.
I love alliteration, and I go out of my way to use it as much as humanly possible in my newsletters and writing. But if I was a kiwi marketing people, furry fruit is not something I would probably hang my hat on. That just does not sound appealing at all.
No,
just a kiwi, for Christ's sake.
Right. What's wrong with kiwi?
Right. Kind of missed the boat there, I think.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. All right, next up, Gerald, what do you think? Furry fruit improves mental health. Kiwi, vitamin C, brain booster, mood booster.
Yeah, without that context, I mean, I agree with Mike. So without that context, it sounds like a sexual thing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go there, but you did.
So, I mean, I guess so. I guess we'd agree. But, I mean, more fruit, probably good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the truth is, the broad, sweeping, decades-long conclusion from me is that there's always going to be a new study picking out a particular phytochemical, plant substance or nutrient in a fruit or a vegetable and what it's going to do to, block cancer or help with muscle growth or lower your blood pressure. It's always going to be some new. Again, science is inching forward. I get it. But yeah, so just eat your fruits and vegetables, man. Like, you know what? I thought about this yesterday. We don't give kids a good reason. We just say, eat your fruits and vegetables, damn it. They're like, well, it doesn't taste as good as the Little Debbie snack cake. You're like, well, yes, but the Little Debbie snack cake over time will be a problem for your little intestines or your heart or whatever. I mean, there has to be some reason, some why, instead of just do it. It's like the old Just Say No ad campaign that came out of Nancy Reagan or whatever. It's like, it's really hard. You have to give people reasons. And now we have them. I think when I was a kid in the 70s, we didn't have reams of research about how it helps it's like fruits and vegetables. They have pro and prebiotic effects. They help the bacteria in your gut and fiber. You're not getting enough. This is giving you something you're not getting enough of. And do you want to be able to poop? Or and you can't talk to kids about their risk of colon cancer 60 years from now, but you can talk about some immediate things, like it'll help you feel good. You'll feel better probably in this study, I think it was within like 4 days or something. It was really kind of rapid. So this one is interesting, and get your guys' thoughts on this. Drugs used to treat type 2 diabetes reduce alcohol craving use in individuals with obesity. So it says an analysis of basically Reddit posts together with a remote study, and they also did a more controlled study on individuals with obesity who reported using semaglutide and other these GLP-1 drugs, found that they have less craving for alcohol, or they consumed less alcohol, or less tendency to binge alcohol. So we're talking about Wegovy, right? And Mike, help me out here. What are some of these GLP-1 agonists? There's a whole bunch of them. Ozempic.
Ozempic is the big one. There's another one that starts with an M that I'm completely blanking on right now.
Yeah.
Too.
They're really rolling these out big time, but could reduce alcohol cravings. I mean, they reduce food cravings. What do you think, Phil? What's your gut reaction to this?
I guess if you're an alcoholic, maybe try it. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I always lean towards like self-control with food and alcohol. Like, put the fucking donut down, put the bottle down.
Yeah.
At some point, we need to be adults and realize that inanimate food or liquid beverage is not in control of you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it helps somebody, I guess kick a fucking. What we don't know is, okay, what happens if you give it to an alcoholic that's addicted to it? Does it still work? I mean, maybe it'd be useful in that, but we don't know that. So.
Yeah, population specificity.
Yeah. The thing that annoys me the most when you start talking to people about eating. And they're like, I could never give up that. And like, I'd have to eat that. Like, all I picture is like little foods, like little militant foods that are like forcing them way inside you. Like, you're fucking putting it in there. You can stop it. Literally, you have to open your fucking pie hole and put it in there. You're telling me that donut's stronger than you? No. Fuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's tough. And again, yeah, I'd have to get, Kelly on here, or a mental health person, to deal with some of the addiction stuff and why people continue, right? Yeah, don't put that in there. Like, there's an old skit. It's Bob Newhart. It's real old school stuff. And he's a counselor, and people come to him with all these problems, and all he says is, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. It's the solution for everything. Well, stop it.
Yep.
It is interesting that they went to Reddit posts, and they're like, wow, like 72% of these posts, when we search for GLP-1 and alcohol, people were making comments that suggest that it reduced their alcohol cravings as well. And again, if you do a deep dive on the study, it talks about, maybe promising practice in people who do overconsume and that kind of stuff. But anyway, Mike, what's your gut reaction to this?
Gut reaction. I like that. My thought for a while is that there has to be some other neurologic, or I guess you could use the word more centrally mediated effect from these drugs, not just gut effects, because appetite is so multifactorial, redundant. It's part of a survival mechanism in humans. And to see it just knocked down to such a high degree with these drugs makes me think there's more than one action that we don't understand yet. My pure guess was that it will find that it interacts with the cannabinoid system, endocannabinoid system in the body. Again, that's a pure guess. I have no data to base that on. I can't find anything that says yay or nay. But I think we'll find that there is other effects for these drugs, most likely. And yeah, even with addiction and that kind of stuff, there's other drugs like Ibogaine that have some very interesting effects too that are not well understood either. So it's good that we're starting to have hopefully more options now also.
How about you, Jarrell? Any thoughts on this one, on alcohol and maybe reduced cravings with some of these type 2 diabetes drugs?
Yeah, I almost think it has to do with the, addiction. It's like you're missing something and you're trying to, fill that void with something, whereas like a lot of addictions are kind of related that way more so than like on the chemical side. So it's almost like, yeah, whatever is causing that particular mechanism is also causing your, overeating and drinking. It's like, it's just all kind of in the same feedback loop, I would say. I mean, yeah. So there must be something in there that's like, your food cravings and alcohol cravings and a lot of drugs, really. I mean, with the exception of, a few that have a true like chemical dependency, there must be some relation to that feedback loop in your system. And then right. Ozempic and all that stuff like kind of have just, I don't know, make you want less of anything, like want to be less, want less. Mm-hmm. So I would be curious actually though, also on like how it would affect your total motivation, because sometimes there's like a little bit of a relationship there, but that would be like my snapshot opinion.
Yep. Hey everybody, Iron Radio is back and in an expanded way. What can you expect? Well, first, you can get it simulcast every week on the nutritionradio.org network, as well as on the original podcast. It'll appear regularly on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting sites. We have a new Iron Radio / Nutrition Radio Facebook page as well. Please check us out. We're even backed up on YouTube. We hope that an expanded presence will get you the news, education, banter, and guests that's made Iron Radio's community so loyal from the start. You are appreciated. And I didn't mean to conflate this. I read a whole bunch of stuff this morning, these news roundups. This next one is a similar topic about cravings and stuff. So let me just touch on this, and then we can get to some other news. From the first bite, our sense of taste helps pace our eating. This is the one that really focuses on the brainstem, actually. It says brainstem recording shows that our taste buds are the first line of defense against eating too fast. It sounds counterintuitive there that your taste buds, if it tastes good, you would slow you down. But apparently there's this tension in cravings between what your brainstem is sensing and then what stretching your gut in the GLP-1 and all the kind of satiety response happens later. First line of defense against eating too fast. Understanding how may lead to new avenues for weight loss. It says when you eagerly dig into a long-awaited dinner, signals from your stomach to your brain keep you from eating so much that you'll regret it, or so it's been thought. That theory has never really been directly tested until a team of scientists at UC San Francisco recently took up the question. Just quickly, just surface thoughts on this, Phil. From first bite, our sense of taste helps pace our eating. So they're talking about your taste buds being part of the whole, satiety issue, and it's not just gut stretching like we used to overemphasize.
I mean, I can see it, but people defy that all the time. And it's like anything else. It's just like training. Like our society has defied that. Like when I started training, I could only do so much. And through more training, I'm able to do more. And basically our society is like, you don't hear anybody say like clean plate club anymore. Like little Johnny's fucking cleaning his plate. So what I'm getting at is like people just, they learn to overindulge themselves, and it's a trained skill. And here in America, we're really good at it. You go to other countries and like you go to a fine dining restaurant, they bring you this dessert and it's like 2 tablespoons.
Yeah.
Rich second dessert. And that's like plenty. And like that first bite tastes just as good as the last bite. Like bite number 87 of that same thing isn't going to taste any better. You're not going to release more of those happy hormones. Like you got them all, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Related to the earlier study, this does talk about the new research focused on, the parts of the brain stem and the GLP-1 connection and all that kind of stuff. So that's the similarity between the studies. It's a good point about you can override that. Like, oh my God, when I would diet for 24 weeks, you're not eating. This is talking about things that taste really good, how they affect the brainstem, and it's not just gut stretch. We used to purposely, when we would bulk up, we would say, listen, we've only got a few tens of minutes, like 20, 30 minutes, power in food before the gut stretch makes you feel full. You guys all remember that. We used to call the duodenal reflex. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but we would do that to overeat. And then when we would diet, nothing in my diet was tasty. By the time I was done, it was like chicken breasts and broccoli. And that's it. And that's it. Water. What's your thought about this, Mike? From the first bite, our sense of taste helps pace our eating.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. From what I've seen in the research, like it's all over across the board. There's some people who say like variety, like when you're dieting, you should cut down on variety because that can cause you to overeat if you have too much variety. And then that's probably somewhat true. If you have bland chicken breast and broccoli, how much of that are you really going to want to eat? A football guy I knew years and years ago, when he was bulking up, his little thing was, don't taste your food, just eat it. Like he would see how fast he could eat the food, and his thing was, just don't worry about tasting it. That'll just slow you down.
Yeah.
So I think there is some truth to it, and I think, like you guys were saying, a lot of it is a learned response. Like how many clients I have, and even myself at times, where if I'm stressed, like I know I eat way more. So try to take a few minutes, do a few breaths, like try to do whatever you want. If it's a religious thing, you can pray before your meals. Just get more parasympathetic before you sit down and inhale half a bag of burritos or something.
Right. Yeah. If you set the rule in advance, kind of to what Phil was saying, and I totally agree with what you're saying, Mike, like slow it down, man. Yeah. But unless your purpose is to use it like a tool to bulk up.
Yeah, unless you're going the other direction.
Yeah, if you're framing it like food is utility, food is a tool. And again, back to Phil's point about like the habit, it's way easier in the middle of a 20-week diet or toward the end, believe it or not, even though you're more restrictive than you started, because you're in the habit. You're like, okay, it's utility. I got this. And you have to be highly motivated. It's delayed gratification, I know. But if you want to get down to low single-digit body fat, holy God, that is not easy. And so you have to have this background motivator. But I think if you frame it like, hey, it's just utility. This is not a hedonic thing necessarily. This is not a pleasurable thing that can come after the contest date and all that kind of stuff, because then it's just utility and you're not really looking for that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to do a study like this and do some of this brainstem stuff with the first bite of chicken and broccoli, instead of turtle chocolate mousse cake. I don't know.
Yeah. I always use you eat because it's hedonic, and you also eat for homeostatic reasons, so H and H. And if you go any too far on any one of those, like for a long period of time, it's not going to be good, but they both serve a utility depending upon the direction and what you're trying to do.
What's your thought, Drill, on this one with the,
I think it ain't going to be all fun. Can't be all fun and games, but also some of it too is just like, I don't think people really even try to, it's like, they're like, oh, either I have X, Y, and Z, or I eat absolutely nothing. So, or eat just boring meals, but there's ways to make your food taste good. And there's like YouTube, there's all kind of resources to, learn to cook in a way that, you enjoy at least enough. It doesn't have to be all suffering, some suffering, not all suffering.
Yeah. It does make sense to me, like as a physiologist, that your taste buds are going to affect parts of your, brainstem or whatever to help control. It's not just gut stretch and all that sort of thing. But yeah, you're going to get feedback from all this. There was one, I'm not going to have you guys respond too much about this, but when Phil says welcome to 1973 or whatever, one of these just really kind of struck me. Survey finds Americans struggle to maintain healthy habits during the holidays. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Somebody call the Nobel committee.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've got a winner.
Again, yeah, the usual apologist for science, right? Is like, well, it came out in early December. It was timely, and they're trying to create evidence in the literature. But on some level, really, guys, Americans struggle to maintain healthy habits during the holiday season? Okay. All right. I know we had a weird tech glitch today, so let's just move right into the other news, Phil. So you are in a hotel, which is why you don't sound as good as normally.
Yep.
So what's going on with you?
No, well, I'm down here doing two things, killing two birds with one stone. I got a seminar I'm giving today, and I'm helping a gym down here. They have a strongman competition coming up, and oddly, they're doing a Highland Games event in the strongman competition. So, and usually when they do that, they kind of bastardize them and don't go by the actual rules of the sport. They're doing weight over bar, but they're using actual implements from Highland Games and the actual rules from Highland Games. So this gym owner has like 8 or 10 people doing it, and they were proactive and looked for somebody that does Highland Games that could teach these people how to do the event. So, so basically I'm doing a whole day on, they're only doing weight over bar, but we're going to come show them weight over bar, weight for distance, hammer, and sheath. So just to give them, a leg up on the competition. So,
Hey, Phil, how does that get abused usually? What, they just make up their own rules or what do they do?
How would I go? Like CrossFit-esque. Like CrossFit loves using existing lifts and then doing something fucking crazy with them.
Okay.
Or when I got into a big fight with Jack LaLanne's grandson because CrossFit started doing something. He was like, "New world record snatch." I'm like, "No, bro. Literally, that's a fucking contested event in the Olympics. That wasn't a world record." He's like, "You know what I mean? It's a CrossFit world record. That's not the fucking world." So they'll just change them. A lot of times, what we'll see with weight over bar is it's an actual event in a sport, and they'll allow them to use 2 hands instead of in Highland Games. Big difference. We get to use 1.
Oh, okay.
And when you're throwing 56-pound weight and you can use 2 hands, that's a big fucking help.
Right.
So they actually have to do it one-handed and things like that. So they want to learn how to do it. Whereas usually they'll latch on to that and then slightly change it, usually make it easier, things like that. And then last night I had a meeting. I'm taking over, helping out basically I'm going to do all the programming for the strength programming for a high school football team. And I came in, toured the facility last night and sat down and had a couple-hour talk and things like that. It all seems good. I don't know, the resounding theme of this trip is, and it's something the coach brought up last night. He's like, people keep asking me why I'm bringing somebody else in. Why don't you just do the strength and training program? He's like, I know people that know more than I do.
So why don't I do that? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the exact theme of this trip. Same thing as this. Like I respect gym owners like this that just realize that they're not the best in everything. Let's bring somebody else in. You know, I can make a call and bring this guy in. Why am I going to try and poorly teach you something that he knows how to do well? And I have total respect for that. And I tried to do that in my own facility. And like even with my people that are trained under me, it's like, go learn from them for a minute. You know, you'll get something new. I mean, that's like I said, the resounding theme, I think.
Well, that's encouraging. Yeah. People in healthcare, you see that all the time in healthcare. Like people, all these different groups, they want to expand their scopes of practice. And you're like, no, I think it's time to make a referral, bro. Like you cannot be an expert in that many different things, especially the more advanced you get, you tend to specialize a little bit. Yep. You know, think about like professors, like their line of inquiry. They just, you know, like my advisor, he studied protein and resistance training. That was his whole thing. That's just what he did. And you can't help but, I know some people can stay fairly broad as well, but yeah, at some point make a referral, you know. So it's encouraging that they're actually kind of doing that. They're like, let's bring in somebody who's an expert in this, you know.
Yep. And all it does is, I mean, as far as a gym owner goes, me having been a gym owner for a long time, like I think a lot of gym owners worry about that. Well, if I bring somebody else in, they're not going to look at me as the expert. And like, no, they're going to fucking thank you. You know, you're still the person that brought them in and brought them to them. And it's just proving that you'll do whatever it takes to better them. You know, even reaching out to somebody else and admitting, look, I don't know everything. So,
yeah. Well, I get it. I mean, I'm sure Jarrell deals with that. Like you are in a way the authority figure. You own the frickin' gym. You own it. But your expertise can partly be coordinator. Like I have a network. Let's leverage that, you know, as opposed to being the answer to everything. How do you look at that stuff, Jarrell?
No, I know everything.
Actually, you guys are jokes.
Yeah, it kind of depends. I mean, I have a few, you know, in network with, it depends on the fuzziest area is pain. So I don't like a whole lot of PTs, honestly. Just because you end up with like, somebody coined the term as like kinesiophobia or something like that, where it's like, you're just like scared to do anything. So I don't like that so much, but I found a few locally that I like to outsource to, you know, nutrition wise. If you have anything that's outside of, basically anything that's outside of, like, I can do your, you know, your macros and protein and stuff, but anything that's more specific than that, you got to go to, you know, an expert to, if you have some sort of food sensitivities and all that stuff. But again, I mean, there's a lot of chiropractors who end up, like, people come back with weird stuff that it's like, dude, I have never heard of that ever. You know, so I'm careful to just outsource to anyone because
this is the worst.
I mean, just like some of the stuff, one was like, oh, you know, and comes back and says something to me all the time about it. It's like, oh, my body just doesn't absorb nutrients. And I'm like, dude, I don't know there's no way that, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's absorbing something, you know, like you're not, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just one of those things. I'm careful about it, but I don't really go too far outside of my zone of strength and conditioning. And I have some tricks for pain relief and stuff like that, but outside of my zone, I don't really offer the next level of advice.
Right. No, I hear you. Like maldigestion, malabsorption, people crash in body weight. Like what percent of your usual body weight are you? You know, the usual tools, because you're going to be, wasting big time. But yeah, people just don't, you know, they're not necessarily educated on a lot of this. I guess final thought, and again, this is all bridging off of Phil and his trip, but Mike, do you get brought in because you have a broad base? Do you get brought in for different things? You know, and how do you differ from like a traditional prof who has a very specific line of inquiry, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So for years I would only do one particular area for other organizations. So I did stuff with the, Mindset Matters Most. So it was basically just the neurology of mindset, looking at it from a neurobiology standpoint, like how do you take in information, how do you process it. My little internal rule is if I do something different, so like I've done hands-on work on people since 2006, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert in it. But my little internal qualification is, can I get people to pay me a market value only for that thing? So they only know me for that particular thing. That's training, nutrition, hands-on work, etc. And then can I teach only that particular thing and people will show up and an organization will pay me? If they do, then I'm like, okay, I'm probably okay in that area because I've verified it via the market and, an organization that trusts me enough to teach it. And then I can figure I can kind of cross areas across it. But all those things are still within a very wide area, but yet narrow spectrum. Like, so when I taught for RPR, some people only know me as the guy who does hands-on work and teaches RPR. Some people only knew me for the person who does neurology stuff or nutrition. So to me, it makes it fun, but it's a longer process. And I've had, I don't know how many marketing consults where they're like, this is the dumbest business idea ever. Because it's much better to have one particular niche that you can then sort of broadcast to the world. And that's great, and I do think it is a fine line of at what point do you outsource? So the first thing in a new area I would look at is, okay, what is my current boundary where, yeah, something's off here. Like, so even now, like I'll have some people I'll see in person for hands-on stuff, and I have a few basic neurology tests that I've learned, and if they've had a history of concussions and their responses are really weird, we can't change them, then yeah, you need to go see my buddy Jeremy Schmo, who just all he does is work with TBI concussion patients, just figuring out, or a physical therapist or whatever, right? Just figuring out where those boundaries are. And then over time, if you can, safely expand them, that's great. But I think initially in the fitness world, the incentive is for everyone to do everything. And when you first start, it's impossible. Like if you've been doing it 3 decades, you can pick up some stuff along the way. But initially, I would tell people just have a really good referral network and know what you're capable of, and then just refer people out. Like they'll thank you, they'll get a better result, and 99% of the time they actually come back to you. You're not losing that person at all.
Right. Like I'm sure Phil's advice for the people he's working with, it's going to benefit their clients, right?
Yeah.
There's no question. Like you need to refer out. You said something that really strikes me over the past 10 years is when you get podcasts and stuff like that, fitness and nutrition are looked at like one thing. And academically, I can tell you, man, they are not. Like when I taught in a dietetics department, I was the exercise, the strength guy. And now to Phil or Drill, that's probably comical. Like, Lonnie can't do that. No, I can't. I'm an exercise physiologist. I'm not a strength coach, And then when I would teach in the ex-phys department, they're like, Lonnie's a nutrition guy. So you can't be – I almost rued the day I decided to go back and get licensed and do all this nutrition stuff because, people want you to be one thing. They want you to be the expert. Oh, Mike's the blank guy, or Phil or Drill is the X guy. Go to him for X. And it's really hard to – even something that's so tightly interrelated, like nutrition is like the flip side of ex-phys in so many ways. But it's hard to do it that way, I guess. So, Phil, you're down there specifically for X. What is your X?
My X is teaching them how to, the main thing, teaching him how to proficiently do weight over bar for a competition they have coming up.
Okay. There you go.
The main thing. And then we added on, I was like, well, that's going to take like an hour. So I was like, let's add on a few things and give them a taste of it. Well, and the benefit is so I'm down here in Wichita, Kansas. There's also a Highland Games here in a month and a half. And it'll be my way to tell them, look, go sign up. Have fun. Try something new. There's a competition so.
Right.
And just use my background because a lot of these people are powerlifters and strongmen. And like the Highland Games was always my secondary fun sport. It was my sport that we didn't do, that I generally don't do what we talked about last week. Like when I sign up, I'm fucking doing it.
Right.
Island games, like I'm going to drink some scotch and run around and kill and throw things. It'll be badass. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So, and I think everybody needs that. You need outlets that you don't take, and it's not that I don't take it serious and I don't go out there and try and win. I don't take it as serious. You know?
Right.
So
it's not your main.
Yeah, those are good activities to have. Ones that you don't stress about. Like, if I fuck up, I fuck up. Yeah, I got my ass kicked. Good job. So,
no, right. Yes, there's definitely that kind of thing where you dabble in something and you just laugh about it. And I think Highland Games is sort of like that. Like I think about like the old, Highlanders or Vikings or something. They'd fight over something and then somebody gets knocked down. They're like, I guess you were right. That's just it's lighthearted.
It's a great sport for that because, like, literally you start the day, like, at 9 a.m. drinking scotch and saying this weird-ass prayer. It's like, this is fucking awesome. Let's go out here and have fun. Especially once you're in the master's class, because it's a bunch of guys that are 45 plus, and like our give a shit meter's gone. We're just out here. We're happy we're still doing it. So
yeah.
But
okay. Well, I think we got a show there. I think that episode that's good. All right, guys. Well, I know Mike is always traveling, so this is like a weird role reversal. Phil is out on the road, and Mike.
What happened?
Yeah.
So
okay. Well,
I'm gonna go find some breakfast. The only thing the Sam Hotel had was those making yourself waffles. So I'm lacking protein.
There you go. Absolutely.
All right, guys.
All right, man.
Later.
Yep. See ya.
Yeah.
Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.